Aye, shepherd's pie, greetings from the Philippines. Welcome back to the channel. And we are back in the Kingswick with my new friend, Luckam. Yeah, you heard it right, Luckam. He's come all the way from Scotland to the Philippines. We met last night. He's a fantastic guy. He's sounds like he has a very interesting life. I don't know anything about it yet, but he's just landed in the Philippines, so we can find out together. Excuse the noise. Buckle up, enjoy the ride. So, Lachlan, tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend. Where do you come from? Where did it all begin?
Well, I'm from the Scottish Highlands in a place called Easter Ross. I was born in Inverness, which is, I suppose, famous for Loch Ness Monster and all that.
Yep.
It's the capital of the Highlands. Brought up in a coastal seaside town called Ballintor, which, after being away for years, I'm now living in a small town called Tain. It's Scotland's oldest royal borough, founded in 1066, same year as the Battle of Hastings. It's about 8 miles from Dornoch, where Madonna and Guy Ritchie got married and had their kids christened.
Did you get an invite?
I did not get an invite, no, but I won't hold it against her. You know. So I went to Dingwall Academy High School, which Dingwall, it's got a club in the Scottish Premier League, which doesn't say much really, but it's Ross County, and it's purportedly where Macbeth, Shakespeare's King Macbeth, was born. And it's not too far from Nairn, which is where Codder Castle, and it all happened, Macbeth and Duncan and everything. So Highlands is, there's not much of a population, but it's the same size as Belgium. So it can
What
be
is the population?
of the Highlands.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, a couple of 100,000.
Oh, that's small, right?
Yeah, but it's about the third of the size of Scotland. So north of Inverness, there isn't a great deal happening, but it's got beautiful scenery, and a lot of people do the North Coast 500. They travel from Europe and up from England to do it in their camper vans. But there's really not an awful lot beyond Inverness. So anyway, I've had various different jobs, lived Inverness, Aberdeen. I had a short spell down south in Shrewsbury, I think it was. Not Shrewsbury, sorry, by Newbury, by the racecourse.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been back up in the Highlands for about 16 years after spending some time in Aberdeen, working in social care.
Did you enjoy that?
It was different. Years ago, I worked on a oil rig fabrication yard called MIG. Makes oil rigs for the North Sea and different parts of Europe. So that was a 2-year contract. So I finished up there, then briefly worked offshore, and I had a friend who was a social worker. So this would be around 2000. So he knew I didn't like working offshore, and asked what sort of work would I be willing to do if I'd do anything. He could get me a job where he was. Now that was a daycare centre for adults with learning disabilities. So from there, I took a job with the homeless in Inverness. It was like a kind of hostel, I suppose. We'd try and get them up on their feet and get them into fixed accommodation with support. I moved from Inverness to a similar job in Aberdeen with a company called the Serenians. I think they're linked to the Simon Centre in London, but they're It's named after, I think, Simon of Cyrene, who helped Christ carry his cross, and this is where the name comes from. So they'll take your burden on if they like. But it was a homeless. Uh, they had different levels of support. So the place I worked in was called a wet house, where they would be allowed to drink alcohol in their rooms, but not in communal areas, just to avoid any issues. I quite enjoyed that. Stayed there for probably a couple of years. Um, it was the waking night shifts that finished me, though. It had nothing to do with the service users. I mean, they would get their money at the start of the week. There'd be a bit of aggro, but you were allowed to escort them from the building, and then they'd come back when they were sober. But they were two different people when they were drunk. They were drunk, the pain in the backside. When they were sober, nicest people you could meet. So I did that for a while, but it was the waking night shifts that did for me. So I then went from working there to a mental health unit in Aberdeen. It was like a halfway house from people in a psychiatric hospital that were looking to move into the community. So that again, they would sort their issues out in the unit, and then after a while they would move on somewhere else to their own accommodation or somewhere supported.
It strikes me as the kind of job that you could view as being very rewarding, or equally you could view it as being very stressful.
It was a mixture of both, and it very much depended on your own personality. Back then, you didn't need qualifications to do it, but if you had a short fuse, forget it. It's more you have to be quite patient. You have to have an empathy and understanding for what they're going through, and not, especially when I worked in the White House, because that was the lowest rung of the ladder. They'd been through the system and failed to adjust to any kind of meaningful society as we would regard. So it was more about containment rather than trying to get them to stop drinking it. They would change, we'd encourage them to change what they drank. So instead of the cheap white cider that was very high in alcohol content, get them a bottle of something like Woodpecker or something with a lower alcohol content. A lot of them would drink through loneliness, so socialisation was a big thing.
The fact that you said that you can't do the job if you've got a short fuse,
Yeah.
I suggest you must have worked with some people who had short fuses, so they hadn't worked out.
Well, it was, I won't name names, but I always found it quite ironic. Some of my colleagues used to like a smoker, hockey barking, cannabis, whatever. And they were mostly long-term users. That it affected their temperament. They would get very snappy, and they may have been suited to it when they first came into the job,
Right,
but
yeah,
through their own issues, they weren't right.
But did you enjoy it? I mean, is it a job that you are glad you did, or was it just to pay the bills, or was it something you enjoyed doing?
It's a mixture of both. I mean, I left school when I was 15, maybe a month or two short of my 16th birthday, in '85, when there was 4 million in the dole under Thatcher, and couldn't get a job, couldn't get any trades. All there was these crappy YTS schemes that give you a kind of
The youth training schemes for anyone that doesn't know what that is.
Yeah. It was. They were supposed to give you skills to get you onto permanent work, but it was just I thought it was a government scam just to keep young guys off the dole because there was no work back then. So I didn't manage to get a trade. So I did various different jobs. I took a lot of jobs in the hotel trade because myself and my father didn't have a great relationship growing up. But we were probably equally to blame. You know, was sort of pretty strict. I just wanted to coast along in life as I do now. So
Nothing wrong with that.
I remember in my last week in school, he said, "Oh, what are you going to do when you leave school, boy?" And I says, "I don't know, I'm not bothered, you know." And he says, "I know you're joining the army." So he sent me back into the army careers office, and the recruiting sergeant obviously thought I wasn't cut out for it, so I was sent on my way. And then I think you weren't allowed to apply for another 6 months or so, and I had various local jobs or ITS, whatever it was. So I applied again on my father's insistence. So this time I passed the initial stages of the interviews, and this was in Inverness, and then I had to go through to Dingwall for a hearing medical. Now they put the earphones on, and you had a little a button to press if you heard high pitched tones. So I'm sitting there thinking, when's this going to start? You know?
Oh,
So I failed my hearing medical because I have high tone deafness.
right.
So
Did that mean there were no trades you could do at all? It was a point blank or?
it was more because there wasn't work. I mean,
Or they could be fussy kind of thing.
yeah. So then when I failed my army medical, my dad's bright idea was, right, you're going to join the RAF. So I said to him, if I can't get into the army, there's no way I'm going to get into the RAF. So I went to the test, passed some IQ test, but failed the next thing. So that's as far as I got in serving my country, you know. Then, so what did I do? Yeah, so because in catering and tourism, you always got accommodation with where you worked. I did that for a few years because it cut out looking for somewhere to live and it gave you a small wage to get by on. Then I suppose I did that till I met the ex-wife.
Okay, what sort of age are we now?
Probably say between 15 and 19.
Oh, you're still a kid then? You're still a kid?
Oh, yeah. I kind of dusted about and did things, picked up jobs and would throw them in and then get another run, kind of, you know, fairly easy. If you weren't fussy what you did, there was always work. So then, when I was 19, I met my ex-wife. At this point, I was working for a sculptor called Gerald Lane, who sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not. He had a castle between between Maryborough, it's a small village in the Highlands, and the Tour roundabout. Now the Tour roundabout's where everybody used to pass through if they're going to Inverness. So he bought this castle in the 60s as a ruin, and him and a local guy did the castle up. So it's now residential for Gerald and his family. Gerald ended up, he was married 3 times, I think, he was quite a character, but he was married 3 times, and his last wife was an heiress to the Procter & Gamble
Oh,
fortune.
wow.
So, I mean, money and his statues, it was bronze statues he would cast, and they would sell back then for 100 grand a piece, no problem. But Gerald wasn't aware of the working man's financial struggle because the wages were pretty crap. And
It's nice of him.
when he went to America to see the wife, because they would go back and forth between the UK and the States, the bin men came round one day. Now it was molten bronze, so I won't go into it, but basically, if Gerald will make a clay model of whatever he's sculpting, put it downstairs to myself and this other guy who was kind of running the foundry, and we'd make a sand cast of the clay model. It's like a bit like a small cement mixer. You just put the silica sand in, put the cast in, it makes an outline of the cast. Once it dries off, you pour molten bronze into the cast, and then the guy that ran the foundry would weld it all together, and that's how your statue was made. It was a hollow. Any statues you see, they're all hollow inside. So I did that probably for about a year when I was dating the ex-wife. But we got engaged I don't know if we would have got married, but anyway, we got engaged and she was pregnant. So back then, it was a sort of done thing if you get somebody pregnant, you get
Married
married.
them.
So anyway, when the bin men would come round for the old broken casks, I jokingly said to one of them, "Hi boys, any jobs going? You know, haha," and then thought nothing more about it. Well, a week later, thankfully Gerald was in America then, but a week later, these two guys came round in a council farm and said, "We're looking for the guy that's looking for a job." And I said, "Well, I said to the guys, any jobs going, but I'm kind of working now." I said, "What's the wages?" And it was twice as much as I was getting paid from Gerald. You know, I was suffering for his art, so I thought I'll move on, earn some decent money. So I went home and told the then fiance, "Oh, I've got another job that pays more money." And she says, "Oh, what is it?" I said, "I've been mum." So she went off her nut because all her friends were doctors and lawyers, policemen, or whatever. You know?
Just to clarify for any of our friends who aren't British, a bin man is a refuse collector, collects the trash.
Yeah.
You know.
So anyway, so I did that for about 6 years off and on because 4 years into the marriage, the only thing I served, 4 years into the marriage, got the P45. She took off with another bloke, and I had two young kids at the time.
Oh wow.
So anyway, she wanted to be with this guy, put me out of the house, and I then went to Aberdeen because it was far enough to get away from all the crap that was going on, but close enough to still see the kids. Still see the kids every weekend, you know. So this went on for a few years. Came back up north, got a place in Inverness. Again, I take the kids on weekends and stuff. Then, between times I was working at Nig and had a flat in Dingwall. So I was determined to keep in touch with the kids. So latterly, about 16 years ago, I moved back from Aberdeen. By this time, I'd moved to Aberdeen again to work for the Cyrenians. Again, the kids would come down, but they loved it because there's far more to do in Aberdeen than there is in the Highlands. So that was for a few years. Met a girl there that I was working with, one of my colleagues, not the clients. So I had a nice flat in the start of the West End in Aberdeen, which is quite a nice area. She said, well, let's buy a place together. She was in a monthly rental from social housing right on Union Street, which is the main drag in Aberdeen.
It's amazing how many cities have a Union Street. It's a lot of Union Streets.
Yeah, it's a massive street, the main centre in Aberdeen. So the plan was we would, I would move in with her because she only had to give a month's notice. I would sell my flat. She didn't have anything to put down, but she was a very honest girl, you know. So she wasn't going to score from it. I moved in with her. As soon as I sold the flat, all the prices in Aberdeen rocketed. So sky high pricing. So we were in her pokey little flat in Aberdeen for over a year, and we started to book her. She had type 1 diabetes. Now, when her blood sugar would fall, she would get very temperamental and moody. But she didn't like to be told to look after herself, you know. So anyway, in the end, it was only a one-bedroom flat. I was still taking the kids down. There was no space. The only place we could afford to move to was a district in Aberdeen called Torry. Now, Torry used to have a bit of a rough reputation. But it was the only place we could afford. So I said to her, "Look, I'm going to buy a place there. You don't want to move, fine, but I'm going." Anyway, she made a big scene about it and ended up splitting up. I moved to Torry, great little flat, didn't have any trouble there. But the interest rates on the flat kept going up, and because I had to pay more than I would have done if I'd bought and sold the flat at different times, bought and sold at different times, I would have been fine.
Yeah.
I put all my equity into this flat in Tory. So I stayed there probably for about a year or so, but it was getting difficult. Take the kids down, pay maintenance, pay the mortgage. The wages weren't covering everything. And I thought, I'll see the last of the kids, because at this point they were in their early to mid-teens. So I thought I'll go back up north, get the last few years of them before they grow up and away. So this is what happened. Moved back up north to where I am now, in Kane. They left home pretty much as soon as they left school. So my daughter's now in London, my son's in Taiwan, and I see my son maybe about 4 or 5 times a year. My daughter doesn't like coming up north for various reasons, so I only see her when I go down to visit. So this is pretty much where I'm at now.
So basically, I mean, you said to me the other day when we met last night, you've been single for quite a long time. So
Yeah.
presumably you didn't marry again. That was it. That was
Didn't marry
it.
again. Had a couple of long-term relationships. Met a girl when I lived in Inverness, a nurse. That was like a job in the rig, so it was on for 2 weeks, off for a couple of weeks. So that wasn't volatile because she was quite even-tempered, but I don't know, it just didn't work out. It wasn't really I went out with her for around 4 years. So we split. Had a few short-term girlfriends between her and my next long-term one, the one in Aberdeen. After that, I mean, this is about, I've been back up north 16 years. I had a couple of short-term relationships. Met a girl I thought it was going to work out with, but that was only for about 3 or 4 months. And that would have been 12 years ago. Since then, I've been on a couple of dates, but nothing significant, and that's it.
Nothing wrong with that, mate. You know, if you're happy single, you're happy single. So at what point did you start thinking about moving overseas then? I mean, was it something you'd been considering for years, or was it a recent thing, or what?
Well, because I have two young kids, I didn't manage to go travelling until I was in my 40s. So when I was travelling, I went to some countries in Southeast Asia: Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, parts of Thailand. I went to India for a while. I was a bit too chaotic, but so I thought I would maybe go back to Cambodia because I enjoyed my time there. I was in, went to, where did I go? I was in Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, and Chinookville. I wouldn't go back to Chinookville because it's like a ghost town now. It's the Chinese casinos. But anyway.
I've heard that. I've never been there, but everyone I speak to says it used to be fantastic 10 years ago. Now it's terrible.
Yeah, because I've been to Cambodia 3 times, and the second time I went, I enjoyed Sihanoukville so much I went back. But it wasn't that it was different businesses where the ones were previously. It was they were bulldozed. So I was wandering about saying, I don't recognise this place. And the tuk-tuk drivers said, oh yeah, the Chinese have demolished it for all casinos.
How do they feel about it, the Vietnamese? Are they annoyed about it, or do they?
The Cambodians.
Sorry, the Cambodians, yeah.
Yeah, no, they weren't pleased because they used to get a lot of business because it was a resort within itself.
Yeah.
But now the only people that go there go to the islands, so there's not much business for them. Yeah, there's not much business for them. So I was disappointed with that. But I enjoyed Siem Reap, not just for Angkor Wat, which is amazing, but it's a nice chilled out town where I found it quite easy to meet people. I actually met a German girl there, so became quite friendly. Then I moved on to Vietnam and she went somewhere else because she was on a tour. So anyway, my intention was to save up for a couple of years until I hit 55, which I am now. I in the UK, you can cash work pensions and private pensions at 55. You have to wait till a lot have to wait till I'm 67 before I get my state pension. So I've got enough for a couple of years before I have to look for work again. So I thought I'll take a year out, go travelling, see how it goes. If I like somewhere, it will be somewhere for the future that I'll consider retiring. Um, so I've only been in the Philippines for a week.
So just out of interest, why did you choose the Philippines? When you've been to other places, you thought you'll just try that and see what that's like and then see how it goes?
Things have changed a bit in Cambodia in that I think maybe the visa process is slightly more complicated. The Philippines, you get your visa on arrival, and then I think if you're newly here, you update it every month or every 30 days, whatever.
Yeah, well, I'll explain that to you when we're off camera, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and also, I haven't been to the Philippines, so curiosity kind of took me here as well. I've been watching videos, including Simon's, which was very good. And
Thank you.
They all seem to talk about it in mostly a positive light. So I thought I would come over here and give it a go.
So when did you land? It was, how long ago did you land?
A week today.
A week today. So you've been in, so Dumaguete is the only place you've been to in the Philippines?
Dumaguete is the only place. Been up to Valencia, just a very close little town further up.
We include Valencia as Macon, you know.
All right, yeah. So I wouldn't want to hang about Manila very long. I got a flight to Manila because it was half the price that the flight to Cebu would have been, which is closer. Too chaotic there.
Did you have a night there, or did you?
No, just travelled through the city. So yeah, I'll give this a go. Unfortunately, as I may have mentioned at the start of the video, I broke my toe at the gym the other day. So that's curtailed some of the things I was planning on doing.
Well, that, whichever way you look at it, is incredibly bad luck. And I won't show you his toe, but it looks bloody painful. But what are your first impressions of the Philippines then, compared to Cambodia and Vietnam?
I would say there's not as much poverty in the Philippines as there is in Cambodia. If there is, it's less obvious for the foreigner to see. People are very friendly. Because of how I've broken my toe, I can't really give, and I've only been here a week. As I say, it's curtailed the things I was wanting to do. I wanted to maybe go diving and snorkeling, travel around and see places. I'm a bit disappointed that there doesn't seem to be too many tour operators here. So you have to depend on the tricycle drivers, which is like the Cambodian version of a tuk-tuk. And their English could be pretty hit or miss. So once my foot heals up, I'll make more of an effort to go around and do something.
Well, I imagine, and don't get me wrong, I could be wrong here, but a lot of people struggle to understand my accent. I'm assuming, Luckam, you must have the same problem.
I met a guy the other day in the name of the Sideways Bar.
Yep.
And we were chatting away about things, and an American guy, a nice guy, but he said, "Oh, you're from Scotland?" I said, "Yeah." The Scottish people speak English there. I said, "Well, I'm still learning, but yeah."
I was in America once many years ago, and the lovely Latino girl who was doing the security, she said, "Where do you come from?" And I said, "England." And she said, "Do you speak English in England?" So there you go. That was, there you go.
I've only been here a week, and I've met a few different people. So the expats are all quite friendly, and Filipinos are very nice to speak to.
So how long do you think you'll stay here for?
If my foot heals up, and I'm hoping it does, I'll probably stay a while.
What's a while? Are we talking months or are we talking weeks? Or?
I intended to stay for about 3 months.
In Dumaguete or the Philippines?
Well, if I like Dumaguete, I'll stay for longer. I might, if I get bored and don't find enough to do, I'll probably move on. My son works in Taiwan, and he does 5-week rotations. So he works for 5 weeks and then he's got 5 weeks off. But because he's on quite a good wage, if he comes back to the UK and spends more than 90 days,
Okay, so it's a tax exile, yeah, yes.
So he goes to Bali on his time off. So I was planning going there. I'll try and tie it into when he's in Bali. So I think he's there the middle of March. He wants me to go earlier to go to different places, but I'll just wait till he turns up and then I'll maybe head out and see him.
Okay, so
then possibly come back with full kids.
So okay, so you're talking about taking a year or maybe 2 off, depending how long your money lasts.
Yeah.
Are you planning to spend the majority of that in the Philippines, or are you planning to spend like a quarter in the Philippines, a quarter in Cambodia, a quarter in Vietnam, or try in Thailand, or?
I'll make an effort to go out to Bali. If depending how much I like the Philippines, I'll probably come back. I might have to go back to the UK to keep my eye on the house. It's just a rented place, social housing, but I don't think the housing association likes you to be
Out of the country
absent for too long. So.
Spread up. Well, I tell you what, I think you have done an incredibly clever thing in the sense that I might publish the video before I do this interview, and I'm not sure what order I put them up, but it amazes me how many people plan in their lives that they're going to move to a country and they just build all their savings for like 10, 11, 12 years to move to that country, and sometimes they've never even been there, and sometimes they've only been there for a couple of weeks. And I've always thought it makes so much more sense to do what you're doing, to take a gap year, as the students call it, to live in a place, and then you will know whether it's for you or not. So you could come to the Philippines, you could love it, and you can go back and think, right, that's the place for me, I've been there, I know it is, and you've got something to aim for. But it's equally as likely, you could think, right, this is not the place for me, I've learnt my lesson, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to maybe try it again in a couple of years ago. But you're doing I personally, for what my opinion's worth, and it's not a lot, you're doing it the way I would advise people to do it, Luckam. You're taking a gap year and you're seeing what it's really like to live there before you move.
I met a guy, an old guy in the hotel the other day. He had moved from the States and he must have been about 80 years old when he was that day. And he said to me, "Oh yeah, that's me now, I'm over here for good." Now, he gave me the impression that he hadn't been before. And I thought, well, you're taking quite a risk at that age, but he obviously had his own reasons for coming and doing what he's doing. So.
Well, it's up to each to their own. A lot of people do that, but you know, it's like now I've been an expat I've been in Asia for coming up 11 years now, and I've been an expat for longer than that. I still haven't found the place I want to live. You know, I'm still exploring. So how people can put their eggs in one basket and decide that's for them, I don't know. We're all different, but I personally think you're very wise, I think, to do it the way you're doing. So that's basically the plan then. The plan is to give it a couple of years here, maybe, or a year, whatever, maybe try somewhere else if this is a disaster, and then go back and plan for moving. Or is there a chance you might just knock the whole expat thing on the head and stay in Scotland? Or are you set on moving overseas?
I don't know. Much as I like Scotland for different reasons, the big thing with me is the weather. The weather's dreadful. We get long winters, very short summers. Seems to rain constantly. It's grim. I mean, I'll give you an example. My daughter lives in London, and during the summer it can be 10, 15 degrees hotter in London than it is in the Highlands. So I've nothing to keep me in the Highlands, so I'll put it that way.
See, I find it fascinating because I had a security business, and we had an office in Paisley, one of our offices.
Right.
And the guard is a security business, and the guards and all the management that worked for me up there, they like to give the impression that they were so tough and the weather was nothing and we were all soft down south, and the Highlanders, they were rugged and etc, etc. And I'm not saying you're not, I'm sure you are. You've broken your toe, you're walking around. But I've interviewed 3 Scots now, and they're all from the Highlands, and they've all wanted to get away because of the weather. I thought you were bulletproof, you know, it came to the weather.
People wonder why half the country's doped up and antidepressants. Well, take a look out the window, you know.
Yeah. So you're not into your Highland sports in the snow or anything like that?
Well, no. not into Highland sports. I don't know if any of your American viewers are into the strongman stuff. But I our last job was in a place called Invergordon, which, as I said, it was the only place in the UK that had a mutiny with the British Navy.
Right.
Anyway, there's the world's strongest man is a guy called Tom Stoltman,
Right.
and his brother's Europe's strongest man, Bob Stoltman. They both live and work out in Invergordon. So it's like maybe 11 miles from where I stay. They've got a little gym. But so yeah, it's interesting in that respect, but it's not that interesting that I'd want to stay there for the rest of my life.
Well, there you go. Well, you've got to do what works for you, mate. I hope. I've only known you, Dave Luckam, but you seem a great guy, and I think you've got a very grounded view on life, and I think you're doing the right thing. Not that my opinion means anything in terms of giving it a a couple of years and seeing how you feel about stuff. And I hope it works out for you, mate. I really hope you find what you're looking for. And the difference is between you and a lot of people is at the end of it, you'll make an informed decision because you've tried it. You know, it won't be chasing a dream. You'll know what you're getting yourself in for. And you're still a young man. You know, if it was a mistake coming here, you've learnt a lot. You can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate you sitting down with me. I enjoyed the interview. It was great. Yeah, I wish you the best. Much appreciated. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, why the hell not? Come on. You'll make me happy, but you'll make Luckam even happier. Doing that one. But whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe, be lucky,